Welcome to Real Grief, Real Healing with Mindy Corporon. I am your host, Mindy. A friend of mine told me in early 2018 that she saw a vision of me with a microphone in front of me. I laughed at the time and said, "I don't see any microphones in my future." Less than a year later, I was recording my first podcast on this show. I'm not going to say, "I hope you enjoy this podcast." My podcast is not truly meant to be enjoyed. Real grief, real healing is just that, real and raw. I provide you an opportunity to learn and share in the grief others are experiencing, and then we share how they are healing or perhaps not. Grief changes each of us in some way. Many of my guests have been encouraged to open new businesses, start foundations, and in general, work to make the world around us a better place. Grief is universal. How we decide to move onward, seeking healing, is individual. A significant part of my healing comes through the courageous kindness actions of others. As you listen to my podcasts, you will hear how you can give and receive courageous kindness too. Together, we are better.
Welcome to Real Grief, Real Healing with Mindy Corporon, taking a deep dive into the reality of the difficulty grief brings and offering insight into the healing available to each of us. Today, episode 35, With Whom Are You Celebrating Independence Day? And now your host, Mindy Corporon.
Hi friends, it's Mindy Corporon. Welcome to Real Grief, Real Healing with myself, Mindy Corporon. I appreciate you being with me today and listening to whatever it is I might be sharing with you. I think I've told you this before. Frequently, when I start talking, I might not know what I'm going to talk about. But today, I did a little bit of planning. And before I sat down in my closet to record, I actually took a walk. I took about a 15-minute walk. Aren't those wonderful walks out in nature? I loved it. I got to see a lizard, like an iguana type lizard. It was all bright green. It was beautiful. It was scampering across the road. I was praying that it was not going to get run over by an automobile that was on its way there. I would not want to see it get splatted. And then, of course, I shouldn't say of course, but then I saw a yellow butterfly. And my heart melts every single time I see a yellow butterfly. If you happen to be new to my story or this podcast, you might not understand what the significance is of a yellow butterfly. I actually have a yellow butterfly tattooed on my left wrist, on the inside of my wrist. And the inscription underneath the butterfly says Genesis 15:6. And I didn't really need to look at it, but I just did. I looked at it for confirmation. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, but I know it says Genesis 15:6. And the scripture of Genesis 15:6 is, Abraham finds righteousness in God. Abraham finds righteousness in God. So you might be asking yourself, okay, Mindy, tell us, why did you put Genesis 15:6 on your left wrist underneath a yellow butterfly? Thank you for asking. The yellow butterfly signifies my son Reet. Shortly after he was murdered in April of 2014, within that next week, I was outside on the back porch trying to learn to breathe, crying consistently, nonstop. And I was looking out into the backyard, praying that he would just appear in the trees, that he and my dad would walk through the backyard. My dad was murdered only minutes before Reet lost his life. And so as I'm out on the back porch, a little yellow butterfly flew by. And it was quite a ways away. So I say it's little, but it was yards away. It wasn't close. And it flitted and fluttered from my vision, from my right to my left. Okay, now let's see, in terms of direction, it was fluttering from south to north. And then it would disappear from my vision. And I would just sit there and consider how horrible I felt and wonder what on earth I was going to do to continue being a mom and a wife and a daughter and the CEO of a wealth management company. I was just contemplating all of these things without my father and son. And that little yellow butterfly found its way into my vision again. Again, from right to left, which was from south to north. And this would go on. And it just became this little friend of mine. So that was day one. Several days later, I'm out on the porch again, and there's my friend, the yellow butterfly. Now, for me to have decided to tattoo the yellow butterfly on my left arm, it had to have appeared more than those 2 times. And friends, it did. I started to realize that this yellow butterfly, in some form or fashion, showed up in my life, in my vision, in my space, almost every single day. It was up to me to find it. It was up to me to be prepared and looking for it. One time I saw a butterfly in the clouds. Frequently, I would get cards in the mail that would have butterflies on them. I've seen a little girl recently with a butterfly on her backpack. I landed in another country going on vacation with Lynn, my husband, and Lucas, my younger son. And as we landed, there were butterflies everywhere, yellow butterflies everywhere. They were migrating. And it was the most beautiful thing. So I tattooed the yellow butterfly on my wrist. Now, the significance of Genesis 15:6. This comes from the fact that Dad and Reet and another woman, Terry Lamano, were murdered because someone thought they were Jewish. And Genesis is the first book in the Bible. In the event you're not familiar with that, the Bible is what Christians look to for their word from God. And specifically in the Bible, Christians, I should say most, I don't even know if I want to say most, Christians tend to read the whole Bible. However, many Christians focus on what are called the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which tells the story of Jesus' life. Okay, well, Genesis is the first book in the Bible. And the first 5 books of the Bible are the Torah. The Torah is spelled Torah, and the Torah is where Jews pay attention. So Jews read the Torah, but they are only looking in the first few chapters of the Bible. And so as I'm contemplating the tattoo, and I'm looking for a connection between faith, my faith in God, my faith in heaven, my faith that Reet is that yellow butterfly, I'm looking for a connection to Judaism. And my connection was found by asking one of my pastors. It was actually Pastor Jeff Kirby. I emailed him and said, because I'm probably now about a day away from getting this tattoo. And the tattoo artist had sent me the picture of the yellow butterfly, and I was very ready for that, but I didn't know what inscription I wanted, and he didn't need to know yet. And so I remember emailing Pastor Jeff Kirby and asking him, when is the first time faith is mentioned in the Bible? And I was looking for a direct correlation into the Torah. And so he said, faith is mentioned in Genesis 15:6 when Abraham finds righteousness in God. And that, my friends, is why I have a yellow butterfly on my left wrist with the words Genesis 15:6 written on it. That moves me into talking about the similarities of Judaism, Christianity, and I'm also going to bring in Islam. Because in Christianity, we believe in God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus. And in Judaism, they believe in Jesus. They just don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And they don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But they do believe that Jesus is a prophet, or was a prophet. And I started to learn that in 2014 as I was delving into Judaism. But near the end of 2014, I was pulled into Islam, which at the time I knew next to nothing about. I knew so little about Islam. I didn't understand truly the difference between the words that seemed to me to be interchangeable, the words Muslim and Islam. Sometimes people would use the word Islam in a sentence, but then they might use the word Muslim, and I hadn't taken the time to figure out why or what. I also want to remind you that in 2014, there was a lot of news, and had been for a while, about, the Islamic State and terrorism was all tied to Islam. And so there was some fear around Islam, and specifically ISIS. So maybe like you, that's what I knew about. I'm not sure what you knew and what you didn't know, but I can tell you I didn't know much. Right now, I'm going to move into pulling all of these connections together for you. And I'm going to read from one of my chapters in Healing a Shattered Soul. So I am a published author. I published Healing a Shattered Soul on May 3rd, 2021. And I'm stopping and pausing because I may be mentioning this for the second time, but I just want to mention that on May 3rd, 2021, not only was I publishing my book, the murderer, the man who wanted Jews dead, but killed 3 Christians instead, the man who shattered our lives, tore our lives to pieces, and caused so much heartache and sorrow and anguish. That man died on May 3rd, 2021. He could have died any other day. He could have died 364 other days. But he died on May 3rd. So friends, I'm going to read to you from the chapter I called Islam or Muslim. The first week of December 2014, Abdussamad Sheikh Hussein was murdered outside his mosque in Kansas City, Missouri. A sophomore at Staley High School, Abdussamad was a brother to 3 siblings, well liked by his peers, and had finished leading the prayers for their Muslim youth group. Abdussamad and his family had immigrated from war-torn Somalia only a few years prior. At the same time, the murders of Dad Reet and Terry Lamano continued to be prominent news locally and nationally. This is why I practice avoiding all news channels and most, if not all, television. Not knowing when a photo of one or all 3 of them would appear on the television made me edgy for months. With each announcement about the district attorney's case against the shooter, a photo of the shooter would appear. For the sake of my mental health, I surmised it would be better to leave the television in the off position. For these reasons, I haven't yet heard the devastating news about a Muslim boy who was run down by a vehicle in front of his place of worship with his friends and 2 of his siblings present. The email came from my pastor, Adam Hamilton, senior pastor of the Church of the Resurrection. His message informed me that a Muslim woman was interested in reaching me for a conversation. Not knowing the news, not knowing any Muslims, at least not thinking I know any Muslims, I am perplexed. This is interesting, I think to myself. What now? Pastor Hamilton picks up the phone after a few rings. Mindy, have you met Manaj Shabir previously? He begins. No, I have not had the opportunity. Quickly, I'm embarrassed to find out I did have the opportunity to meet her when Pastor Hamilton interviewed her about a year prior for a special series he hosted at the church. Pastor Hamilton goes on to explain that he first interviewed Manaz, a Muslim woman, about a year ago during a sermon. He describes her as a lovely, articulate, and peaceful person. He tells me she is a mother to 4 boys and a widow. Her husband, a physician, died suddenly 8 years prior. She is raising 4 boys on her own and has an extensive background in the healthcare field. He continues to explain that Manaz would like to speak with me about a tragic event that happened only a few days ago. He said, a young Muslim boy was brutally murdered. He was 15. As he continues to talk, my brain freezes in place on he was 15. Reet should be 15. While this brain freeze has happened to me before, I am still unaware of the power that trauma has on humans, and more importantly, the lasting effects. Somehow I've managed to live for 8 months without my dad and son. Living doesn't equate to healing. Immediately feeling connected to the story and the pain his family is feeling, I physically shake off the freeze and concentrate on paying attention. Pastor Hamilton continues to explain that yesterday evening the boy had been in his mosque, leading prayer services. Afterward, he and his friends were standing in the parking lot talking. Suddenly, a car raced into the parking lot and ran over the boy. Not once, but twice. The man proclaimed to be Christian, who had converted from Islam, he said. Based on my personal research of Abdus Samad's murder, I found that witnesses believed the suspect's conversion from Islam to Christianity was a significant piece of this tragedy because the suspect's vehicle was seen with language defaming Islam in the weeks and possibly only days ahead of this murder. The suspect was well known in the Somali community, but not necessarily well liked. Another religious hate crime is how I heard the message on the phone. Another promising teenager had his life brutally taken. A faithful boy, no doubt, after delivering prayers with his teenage friends. A loving family member, as he was with his own siblings at the mosque. His life taken from him, cut short by hate. Unfortunately, Abdus Samad will be remembered for who he was rather than for who he could have been. Abdus Samad's parents had to be sick to their stomachs. They had brought their son to the United States for safety, an education, and a chance at a better than decent life. I was sick to my stomach. The nausea found its way into my throat as quickly as my brain took me to the parking lot at the Jewish Community Center. This was another brain freeze for me, a trigger. Frequently in my mind, I found myself standing in the parking lot, wind blowing softly around me, no one present, except for my father's bleeding body. Shake it off, I have to say to myself. The physiological reaction I am having is noticeable. Having difficulty removing my thoughts from the scene of the parking lot, I stand up and try walking to clear my head. Young people witnessed the horrific death, I heard Pastor Hamilton say. Frankly, I wasn't sure if I had potentially missed any of his words while the dark memory was holding me captive in the parking lot. My own voice took over and said, "Of course you can provide my number to the woman Manaz, who is looking for me." Later that afternoon, my phone receives a call from an unknown number. Manaz Shabir. I'm practicing saying her name. I am fairly certain she is the first Muslim with whom I have ever spoken personally. However, in April 2015, I realized that Reet's friend, Bilal Jamil, is Muslim. Really? How come I didn't know this? I think to myself, once I discover this, that I have known Muslims, had Muslims in my home, and never thought about learning more about who they are. Manaz is friendly and compassionate as she explains that she is very sorry for my loss. She is also sorry for the unspeakable crime that has been committed against this young man. She says Abdusamad's friends asked her to reach out to Reet Underwood's mom. Prior to Reet's murder, when I was referred to as Reet's mom or Lucas's mom, my heart fluttered. I was happy to claim these as replacements to my own name from the time each boy had playmates or when a nurse tending to their care called for an insurance card or signature. It was a responsibility I not only cherished, I owned. After Reet's murder, when one of his classmates at a restaurant or grocery store recognizes me with a quizzical look and then a hesitant, "Are you Reet Underwood's mom?" I am quick to smile and engage them in conversation, and sometimes a full-on hug. As the words from Manaz reached me, "Reach out to Reet Underwood's mom," she had me. Here is how Manaz reached out to Pastor Hamilton via email. On December 6, 2014, 8:46 a.m., from Manaz Shabir. Hello, Adam. I hope you and your family are doing well. I am helping with the Abd Samad Sheikh Hussein, 15 years of age, who was killed 2 days ago in front of the Somali Community Center's memorial service. We thought it would be helpful to have Reet Underwood's mother be at the vigil as well. Would you send me her contact information? Also, if you are available tomorrow at 1:40, I know Sundays are busy for you. That would be wonderful as well to say a few words of comfort and religious solidarity. This young man was the son of the Imam at Masjid al-Taqwa. The vigil will begin at 1:40 at Masjid al-Taqwa, the Somali Center. Thank you, Manaz Shabir. I am honored to hear that they want me to come to the vigil for their friend as a representative of my own boy. Again, I'm struck by the irony of his age. He was 15. Reet would have been 15. The fact plays like a recording over and over in my head. It seems so simple, really. Reet should be alive, and so should Abdusamad. They were both murdered because of their faith, or in Reet's case, what was believed to be his faith. This has to stop. I agreed to attend Abdusamad's vigil without asking any family members how they feel about this, namely my husband. Lynn has agreed to attend or watch me attend numerous vigils in the past 8 months and hasn't balked at one. Today, he was not as harmonious. Mindy, this boy was murdered because of his faith in plain sight of witnesses. Lynn warns, there might be others like him who target the vigil. Lynn was fearful for my safety. Fear? I hadn't thought about fearing for my own life. Lynn reminds me that we have a 12-year-old at home who needs his mom to stay alive. Yeah, I know this. I am still not fearful. I know I need to be there. It's not that I felt bulletproof. I simply didn't think about dying myself or being a target for anyone. I was simply trying to live the best I could. If my attending this vigil could help Abdusamad's parents and family and other teenagers, I would attend. Life can throw pretty much anything at me, and it cannot be any worse than what I've already experienced. Honestly, if death comes knocking, I know it will transport me to be with Reet and Dad, and that doesn't sound too bad. Lynn isn't happy with me, but also doesn't have the energy to fight. Common for anyone experiencing a tragedy is exhaustion. I was taking advantage of his exhaustion at this moment. I call my mom and my younger brother, Tony, to let them know I will be attending the Muslim vigil. Not wanting me to attend alone, they offer to join me. Now that I am planning to walk into a mosque for the first time in my life, the hairs on my neck prickle and my heart races. I wonder about the appropriate dress for a Muslim vigil. I'm not concerned about my appearance. I am at a loss as to what their religious and cultural standards are for a vigil, for a woman at a vigil. So I do what anyone else would do. I Google what to wear to a mosque. Then I give Manaz a quick call to confirm I can wear pants. Pretending to know more than I do, I let her know about my plan to wear a headscarf and ask for confirmation. Manaz concurs with the expectation of me and all the women entering the mosque to have our heads covered. She explains that the Islamic faith instructs men and women to dress modestly, telling me that these scarves are called hijabs. She assures me it doesn't matter what kind of scarf I wear, but that my mother and I should cover our hair. With this small amount of confirmation regarding my apparel, I quickly become apprehensive about not understanding the difference between Muslim and Islam. These two words were used by Pastor Hamilton and now Manaz. Are they interchangeable? In June 2014, language such as Islamic State could be heard on the radio as a band of deviants were raising hell in another part of the world. Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, became more common in our terminology when discussing all the bad, evil people and potentially places in the world. Hearing the words didn't pierce me until I was now considering entering a mosque filled with people who called themselves Muslim. Yep, I Googled, what does Muslim mean? Muslim, a follower of the religion Islam. What does Islam mean? Islam, the religion of Muslim people, a monotheistic faith regarded as revealed through Muhammad as the prophet of Allah. Islam is one of the three Abrahamic faiths. I felt stupid. I had never had a reason to know the meaning of these words. Mom is driving the three of us to the vigil. Seated in the front passenger side of the car with Tony in the back seat, fear creeps in as I wonder how to appropriately and compassionately encounter this family. The tables have turned on me. In this experience, I am the one coming to offer my condolences. The death is still new to them. Hell, the deaths we experienced are still new to me, almost 8 months after our fateful day. Right now, Abdismad's family has foggy brain, are in shock, and are wondering through disbelief. How am I going to help them? Perhaps it was a bad idea for me to be present. Thinking of how people often appear and act when they encounter me, I pause. The uncertainty about what to say and what not to say regarding the tragedy is written all over them. Every person who has encountered me since the murders has never known exactly what to say. How could they? How could I know? Feeling overwhelmed by these thoughts, I share my concerns with my mother by saying, "What do I say to his mourning parents and siblings?" My mom tries to reassure me with, "Mindy, you always know what to say. I am sure your presence alone will be helpful to them. That is all they are asking of you." In an area of Kansas City we have not frequented, let alone ever driven, my anxiety finds me. The coldness I felt after I saw my dad's body in the parking lot and my heart racing have become more commonplace in my body since April 13th, 2014. I am praying that Lynn was not correct about further retaliation at this location. His warning comes to the forefront of my mind. You have a living son who needs his mom. Suddenly, I feel vulnerable. Friends, there's more to this chapter, and there's so much more to discuss about the commonalities, the similarities, and the differences between different faiths. I encourage you this Independence Day. I encourage you this July 4th, Independence Day for the United States of America. Take a look around you and see who are your neighbor. Your neighbors are celebrating Independence Day, and they could be from a variety of different countries and other locations and have different cultures. They may look differently than you. They may look the same as you. They may be your own family members. Friends, take time to embrace people who don't look like you. Take time to embrace everyone who is celebrating independence and be very thankful for the independence that you have. I know I am thankful for the independence that I have. Thank you, friends. Together we are better, and together we can walk in courageous kindness. Friends, thanks so much for joining me today for this podcast of Real Grief, Real Healing with Mindy Corporon. If you want to dive deeper into how you might heal yourself or a friend, please pick up a copy of my book, Healing a Shattered Soul. Published on May 3rd, 2021, you can find my memoir anywhere books are sold. You will also find me in social media channels as Mindy Corporon. Take time to help yourself heal, accepting courageous kindness. Take time to heal another by giving courageous kindness. Together, we are better.
Real Grief, Real Healing is copyright 2021 to 2022, Mindy Corporon, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. This podcast is a production of 818 Studios.